got the news in the doctor that day, I don't think we said a word.
Yeah.
We were just numb. And she walked on the elevator, and I think you said something like, "It's going to be all right." I
can't remember what it was, but it helped me the whole rest of the way.
You said, His grace really is real, and we're going to be all right. And hello, everyone. This is going to be our first episode of the Hewett Family Podcast, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Chloe.
We are excited about this. We've never done anything like this, and we don't pretend we have all the answers. We don't pretend we have our ducks in a row, but we just want to share some life experience with you that God's allowed us to go through. And we're going to be interviewing different people, and our desire is to get to introduce you to a lot of the people that we've met in our journey. So we'll just get into it. We met when we were both, I guess I was 23 and you were 23 as well, weren't you?
24.
You were 24. Mm-hmm. But she saw me. This is the cool part of the story. She saw me a few months before I ever noticed her. I'll let you tell a little bit about that.
I had read a book called Preparing to be a Helpmeet. And in that book, the author said that if you see, I'm just paraphrasing here, if you see a young man that might make a good husband, or if he's just a preacher, you need to pray for him because he needs prayer, and you never know what, might come of that. So I saw him and immediately began praying for him. I don't know how long it was.
That
6
was
months.
June of 2011. We did not meet until November. And tell them about the dessert table. That's my favorite part.
Oh, dear. So I saw him multiple times, and he didn't see me at all. And one of the meetings we were at, he had finished preaching. We went downstairs to have a meal, and I noticed that he was sitting there eating his food. And I was like, well, I'm going to go get a dessert over there at the dessert table, which was right beside his table. And I lingered for a very long time trying to decide what I wanted.
Yeah, it takes me a long time to catch on.
So he would notice me, but he didn't.
And we were just wide. I'm still wide open, but I actually walked by a table she was sitting at and talked to people at her table that evening, and dummy me did not see her. But it was God's plan. We both got to grow a lot that year, went through some things individually. And then we met finally in November of 2011 at Faith Baptist Camp, and literally I saw her that day in the service, and I told my pastor and a deacon at our home church, I said, I will meet her today. And so I did. We only got to talk maybe like 4 minutes, and she looked so young. I was afraid that she was like in high school still. So I said, when did you graduate high school? That's a lesson for all you young men. I just ask them when they graduated high school. But we just kind of hit it off that day, and she had come with some mutual friends of ours, ended up coming back, and we kind of interviewed each other the last 2 nights of that week after service in the dining hall. And I remember she was asking questions, I was asking questions, and it was just amazing what we had in common, and we were heading in the same direction, and that was important. But we got married June of 2012. We had a courtship of about 6 months, and it was wonderful. We made the decision that we were not going to ride around together by ourselves. We weren't going to kiss, hold hands, things like that, because we wanted to protect ourselves. We wanted to protect or have accountability. We did not want to mess up what God was giving us. We knew that we had something special. I was already full-time in ministry. She was teaching at the time. Special needs elementary at the time, and so it was just wonderful. And we got married. I actually had somebody saved at our wedding. We had preaching. Yes, we had preaching at our wedding. We couldn't see having all of these people together at one place and not having the gospel preached. And so it was wonderful. This is the kind of the part of the story we wanted to get to, though, just kind of introducing to y'all, because we're going to cover this topic a lot, but about child loss. We have experienced infant death. We have experienced stillborn and miscarriage. I think that's right. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we have a special needs son, Ezra. He has got an amazing mind, but he has myelomeningocele spina bifida. So we're just going to kind of talk through this. She and I have never, I don't think we've ever just sat down and talked through all this together. So this is going to be very raw and very to the point. We got married and we thought, hey, let's wait a year. Let's date each other. We had a little house. It's funny, our first year of marriage, I think we were only home 38 nights because I was already traveling preaching. So she went from living in a town with more cows than people, driving 1 mile to church and 1 mile to Ingalls, and, no, 1 mile to work. Is that right? And to driving 50,000 miles in the first year with me living in a hotel. It was great. But we were getting to know each other, just learning each other, and we decided we were going to wait a year. And God had other plans, because I think it was October. I was actually praying. I was like, hey, I think you're expecting. And nothing spooky. I was just like, I think you're expecting. And so she took a test, and sure enough, she was expecting. And like, I know some people are so disappointed when they find out they're expecting. Like, how are we going to do this? Well, we were excited. We were happy. I remember us just crying that day, excited. And we went along, and everything seemed to be going fine. And I think it was November. Let's see. It was the Sunday before Thanksgiving of November 2012, and we were preaching in South Georgia, and she started having just complications. I think I could actually take you to the bathroom there on the exit. We actually got a ticket that morning too. Mm-hmm. We were trying to make it to church on time, and we got a ticket. But it was a wild day, and we stopped at that gas station, and we didn't know what was going on. And and of course, it was Thanksgiving week. Nobody would. I don't think it was until, was it the next week they saw you?
Yeah, it was over the weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it ended up being over the weekend. All this started happening. She just started showing signs that something was wrong, and then over the weekend we knew something was wrong, and so we went to the doctor the next week, and we started our relationship with this ultrasound tech. This poor lady, I don't know her name, but if she ever sees this, we are sorry. We are sorry that you had to be our ultrasound tech through our 20s. But we went in there that day, and there was actually some good news. She was expecting twins, and we did not know that. She is a twin, identical twin, and twins run in both sides of our family. So it was very likely that we probably would have twins. And so that day they informed us that baby A, as they call it, had already passed. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And that I don't remember. Do you remember what they said about the second one?
The likelihood of the second baby living was small, but they said there is a chance that the second baby would make it. But I was supposed to go to the doctor every week just to kind of keep a check on things, and then it was the next week we went in. Yeah, and found out that she had actually miscarried, or the other baby had passed away, couldn't find a heartbeat. And so, we were sad, but also we were hopeful, because they said that a lot of times there's like a 50% chance of miscarrying the first child. And I had no idea. And that's a whole nother discussion. I think clothes, I think food, I think what we're putting on our body, in our body, I think how our food is grown, the things we're putting in our food, I think a lot of that's affecting the fertility rates in America. I think last year is the first time that our population actually went down. So between abortion and a lot of people having a hard time expecting, it's affecting everything. And so anyways, we went, and it was, I think you kind of recovered fast from that, didn't you? Was that was the 80 something day.
That one was. Mm-hmm. Yes. So 80-something days, she had complications, if we can call it that, physical complications from that. And obviously, you know that when there are hormonal complications, physical complications from childbirth and things like that, it really affected her. You want to share any of that?
I don't really go there very often in my mind because it's not a pleasant place. I just remember the doctors not being able to figure out, you know, why is this happening? I was ready for the physical aspect of it to be over. But at that point, I didn't really think, oh, we're going to have this hard journey.
Yeah.
I was disappointed, but I thought, you know, we'll try again and try to have another baby. But so that first time for me, it was just, I was tired of all of the physical complications.
It was complicated. It literally was. It was complicated. And we both talked about this and backing up, and we don't blame ourselves. God has a way in all of the things in our life. But, you know, we wish we would have maybe waited a little while and let her heal better. We didn't. And we've talked about that before. But the March of 2013, we found out we were expecting again, and we actually waited a little longer, I think, before we told people. Isn't that right?
I did.
Yeah, she did. I can't keep a secret with that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. I told my close friends. The problem is I got like 10 really close friends. That's the problem. And so she would get on to me about that. But I enjoyed telling. And it was so wonderful. I remember, I may even put the picture over on the video here, but we put a sign on the back of my guitar, and we were at a tent meeting, and we put "We're having a baby" on the back and showed everybody. And it was a lot of fun. We were in a tent meeting. I think we had 7 people saved in 2 weeks. It was really fun, and that was when we announced it. But we just a lot of things was happening. So many good things, like a family 2 weeks from then gave us a Chevrolet Tahoe, a 2010 Chevrolet Tahoe loaded. The week after that tent meeting, a family gave us a camper, which she affectionately called Stinky. It was one of the like early 2000s models campers, and they were just figuring the fiberglass lightweight stuff out, and it smelled like formaldehyde. And she hated going in there because she had morning sickness, and she could smell everything that had ever been put into that camper. And man, she would run into there and put the blankets over her face. And it was a real fun time for her with that. But we affectionately called that camper Stinky, and it was so fun. But
it was not fun.
It was fun for me. I cooked a lot of meals. I will say this: I cooked a lot of our meals during that time. But we stayed in there, and man, it just seemed, I mean, we were just enjoying life, and the baby was growing, and everything just seemed to be going great. I'll never forget, we were in another tent meeting. This was in Athens, Georgia. This was July of 2013. We have what we call a work week, where we go door to door, and we put out literature and things like that the week prior. But we had the tent set up in a homeless encampment right outside the homeless encampment, and it was just spiritually speaking, we had another issue where there was a lot of spiritual warfare, and it was breaking our hearts. But we were on our way to a church. I think it was July 22nd. The week before the tent meeting started. We were on our way to a church outside of Athens that was going to feed us that night, and our group, there were several of us on the bus, and we were singing, and the song "How Firm a Foundation," we started singing it, and there was a verse that I had never heard. So everybody kind of got done singing, and then one of the ladies in the van or the bus, she kept singing and sang this verse, and it said, "When through fiery trials in thy pathway shall lie, my grace all sufficient shall be thy supply. The flames will not hurt thee. I only design thy dross to consume and thy gold to refine." And we had no idea. Like that song, that verse just hit me like a ton of bricks. And you know, sometimes things happen in your life, and the Lord will deal with your heart to, hey, remember this, like log this back. So the next day we drove from Athens, Georgia to Chattanooga, because she had a 20-week anatomy scan, and we were not at high risk at this point. You know, we had the miscarriages, but there was no high risk factor at this point. We were just going in for a gender reveal and a 20-week anatomy scan. And poor ultrasound lady, same lady, we walked in, and you know, I had to look at people's faces in the pulpit every week, and I know when something's wrong. I know when something's off, and ultrasound lady or techs cannot tell you anything. And she was scanning the baby. Obviously, we found out it was a girl. So Everly Grace, that name became etched in our lives forever, and that was her name, Everly Grace. And but I could tell by the ultrasound tech's face that something was wrong, and she kept scanning and rescanning things, and kept rescanning things, and kept rescanning things, and I can't even remember if we even talked.
They just said that there were complications and that we would have to see a specialist. So we got referred to the Rock,
which is the Regional Obstetrics of Chattanooga. It's right down the road from the hospital where we were at. And we went in there, and I remember that day. It's a hard place. And I know those people, they're doing their job, but it's a hard place. And I think the longer you work in that field where you're dealing with children who are going to probably die or be born with defects and things like that every day of your life, it was very clinical. Would you agree with that? Like, there's this bedside manner with the with your normal doctor that is absent, and I don't think we really ever saw the same doctor much twice.
Couple times.
They just had a group of doctors, and you just became like a clinic number. And man, it was different, y'all. It was different. And they scanned every part of that baby, like the femur length. They're scanning the kidneys. We found out that day that, man, I'm gonna try to remember all this.
Hypoplastic.
Everly had hypoplastic left heart syndrome, so that means that one side of her heart did not develop. She had, did she have hydrocephalus?
No, she had probable Dandy Walker.
Probable Dandy Walker. She's
syndrome.
Missing a kidney, and she had club feet.
They thought she
might have club feet. We didn't know, but like, it was just like, whoa, you know, what in the world? And you know, you don't want to make these questions or assumptions, but it's like, Lord, we're trying to serve you with our whole life. We literally left serving you to come here to find this out, you know, and you start asking, like, have we done something wrong? What's going on? All these things. So we went back to Athens, and obviously that song began to minister to us. We went through the tent meeting, but I think the hardest thing, I think it was 3.5 months. So August, September, October, November. So 3.5 months before Everly was born. It was like, the way I've said it, and I'll let Chloe speak to it, but I felt like it was a funeral every day. I mean, is that a good example?
For me, it was, you know, you can't wait to meet your baby. You can't wait to see what they look like. You can't wait to hold them. And I still experienced all of that. I wanted to do that, but I knew that once she was born, she was going to die. And so I didn't want her to be born, but I did want her to be born. And it was a struggle just to know even how to feel. I didn't want her to die. I didn't want to be pregnant anymore. I didn't want her to pass away. So some days I would just wish I could hold her forever, you know, in my womb, and then it was just hard. But I wanted to meet her, so it was just really complicated.
Because as long as she was in that womb, she was completely healthy. She was doing all the work for her body, and so it was complicated. You know, again, that word comes up, complicated. And because of what we do, especially back then, like now we do, you know, I'm pastoring now. She's a pastor's wife. They call her First Lady just because she don't like it. She's not. She don't. People pick at her about First Lady, but at that time we were in some kind of church service or jubilee or camp meeting or whatever every week. And at the same time, we were making these drives to go to Atlanta, go to Emory, because they'd sent us to Emory because the team could handle it better there. And we just, every time we went to the doctor, it was worse. It started, I think, like a 50% survival rate. And then it was just like every week, that survival rate just continued to decrease and decrease and decrease. It was heartbreaking. We started going to meetings. We would be in the doctor's one day, and then the same day we would go into a meeting. And I know people meant well, but one day I may write a book on what not to say to people going through a tragedy. I'm praying for you. If I can help, let me know. Those are the two greatest things you can say. Because, and I'm not being ugly, because we faced miscarriage, but I remember seeing what it would do to her when somebody who had, and I'm not belittling this because we've had these, but somebody would have had a 6-week miscarriage, and they would come up and try to relate that to this baby, this full-grown baby she's carrying in her womb. And it was not the same, and it was hard. I remember that one church we were at, and this was before we actually, this was after the miscarriage of the twins. No, this was after Evelyn. Mm-hmm. And this woman found out we had been married like 2 or 3 years. And, you know, there's people out there that they think you're sinning if you're not having all the children you can have. And man, read your Bible again. I'm not getting into that right now. But this woman was like, man, she was trying to make her feel guilty about, and if you're watching this, ma'am, hi. She was trying to make her feel guilty about us not having kids yet. And I think you just kind of let her have it.
I think you did.
I let her have it. I'm sorry. I won't blame it on her. I was like, yeah, our children have all died. I just told her that. We walked away. So be careful. And I say all that to say this. Be careful what you say to people. Be careful about asking young couples that don't have children if they're planning on having children, because you do not know what they're going through. Man, we had this woman, Bozo. He tried to. We ate whole food, organic, basically, 100% of the time at that time. Like, we would go out of our way to buy raw milk and organic food, and we still eat healthy. We were very much about that then. Mm-hmm. And this one guy comes up to her and is like trying to tell her that the reason she's losing all these babies is because she's not eating good. And I was pretty hot that day. I was pretty hot that day. He like ran off. I think he could tell I was hot. But the biggest thing and the hardest thing was God's people meaning well. And I'm not attacking anybody, but they would come up to us every night at meeting, and they would tell us all of these wonderful stories of people with completely different situations, but they would try to make it like, this is what's going to happen for you too. And we had kind of come to a point fairly early on, like, we don't know that God wants this to change.
I think we knew that we prayed for a miracle, but we just had this peace that she's not going to make it. And I think we would fluctuate, like maybe God, might do something and save her, but I think every time we went to the doctor, it was worse. And so, of course, we would be upset, we would cry, we would pray, again, that peace would come that she's not going to make it, but God's in control and everything's going to be okay. And so we would leave, usually the parking lot, because we usually just did that in the parking lot, but we would leave with this peace that
this is what God wants.
This is what God wants. Everything's going to be okay. But then we would get to church, and the well-meaning people would be like, my sister's uncle's best friend's cousin, this happened to them, and
I saw a meme on Facebook,
and I would get my hopes up again. Well, maybe, I would want to hang on to all these little things that people were throwing out, and just for me, I don't know that, and I'm not mad at anyone. Everyone is. I don't
just trying to teach.
Know what to say myself to people who are going through a hard time, because how we handled it might not be how other people handle it. So I don't know what to say to people a lot of times, but for us, it was just like you said, we're praying for you. That was the biggest thing that helped me more than anything. And you even said if there's anything we can do, let us know. And I think I'll take it a step further. I didn't know what I needed. I was just upset. And a lot of times we were so busy back and forth to the doctor and in meetings and different things. And for someone to say, hey, can I bring you a meal tomorrow night? That for me was just the best, because I didn't have to think about it. Like, well, what do we need? I didn't know what I needed. And so for just someone to say, hey, can we come clean up, you know, your house for you, or can we bring you a meal? That was just, for me, that was the best thing.
It was, and God's people, a lot of times, they wouldn't know what to do, and they would just give us money.
Yes.
And like, we lived in a camper. Well, we still had a house at the time, but we were basically, I'd say 95% in a camper in Stinky, and they would just be a blessing financially. And that plays into where we're going. We're about to talk a little bit about that here in a minute, but it was like a funeral a lot of times every day. And just, we would talk through those times, talk through those days. I sang that song all the time, How Firm a Foundation, all the time during that time. And finally, we got into November. We were in a meeting in Mississippi. We could tell she had preeclampsia to the point where you could hear the fluid sloshing in her feet. It was that bad. We were already monitoring. I think we had already started monitoring your blood pressure.
I think so.
And so we got. I preached that Sunday.
Where were we?
We were in Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Yes, I had flip-flops on because I
And it
couldn't
was November.
wear any other shoes. And I'm sitting in church, and snap, my flip-flop busted off my shoe, off my foot.
Without her standing, it just popped.
Just popped.
And so we just both talked, and not that we were trying. Nobody was pressuring us to stay. We just was like, what do we need to do? So we talked to her midwife, and we went on in, and sure enough, that Monday, they put her into the hospital with preeclampsia. I don't even know how they got your blood pressure down. Like,
I don't remember. I think they wanted to keep me.
Yeah.
And I said that I understand we're going to have this baby early. That's fine. I've been here for 3 days. I'm ready to climb the wall. Send me home, and I'll come back tomorrow.
But she did. Your blood pressure had went down.
It did.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This was November. Let me think. 6th. So 4th, 5th, and 6th. We were in the hospital there at Erlanger in Chattanooga, and they sent us home Wednesday. And I can't believe they sent us home. So we go home, our little house, and I'm singing love songs to her, and with the guitar, and the midwife comes by, and she's eating, and we're just chilling out. And we went to bed probably
early, I feel
11-ish. Went to bed, and at about 12 o'clock, she starts rubbing my face. And at that time, I just started letting my beard grow out. So I had like maybe like a week. And she's like rubbing my face. And I'm like, what are you doing? And do you remember what you said? Because her water
I
had broke.
didn't realize it though.
She was like, what did you say? A sensory thing? It was a sensory thing.
Yes, it was a sensory thing.
She was
I was trying to get my mind.
And I was like, go
get
a towel. Quit rubbing my face. I like had a rash all up this side of my face from her hand. And her water had broke. And all that time they were checking her with the preeclampsia. They had never like put any kind of monitor on the baby at all.
They had.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did, but I was trying to think because I was showing some contractions.
Yeah.
But I don't think they were enough for them to be alarmed. But
Braxton Hicks, because you've been having Braxton Hicks.
I do remember them
for a while.
When we came in, they had said something about, what about these contractions she was having? Why'd you let her go home?
Yeah. So we thought, well, this is her first baby. It's early on. Let's just labor here. And so she starts laboring. I called the midwife, and she was at another birth, which we wanted to have a home birth. For our whole marriage, wanted to have home births. We're Jesus-loving hippies a little bit. And we live in a camper, drink raw milk, want to have home births. We do wear deodorant, though. That's the important part. We wear deodorant. But we she's like, I want to labor here, and I said okay, and so we start laboring. She starts laboring. I was just watching, but I was trying to help her. We did the Bradley method, right? We did the Bradley method, learning how to walk through this and stuff. Excuse me. And she's doing great. I mean, we're y'all forgive us. We're dancing, just swooning back and forth and helping the contractions go. And I started noticing some keys where if you're familiar with the Braxton or the Bradley method, it's kind of like they describe like you climb this mountain. There's a peak, and then once you're on the other side of the mountain, it's pretty fast. The baby's coming, and so I was like, uh-oh, we have waited. So you're what, 6 hours probably, I think, into it. And she's like, get me to no. I said, we got to go to the hospital.
You had checked my blood pressure.
Yeah, I checked her blood pressure, like way high, 170 something over like 100 or 110. It was extremely high. And I called the midwife. I was like, hey, and she said, oh, I'm on my way. Y'all just get her in the car, go to the hospital. And I said, Chloe, when you get your clothes on, we need to go to the hospital. She said, I'm not going to that. I can't remember all she said, but she gets a little like touchy when she's over that mountain peak. That's how I know now. But she said, I'm having the baby here. And so I'm like calling our midwife, like, Michelle, get here quick, get here quick. And so she's trying to get to us. And we had just like, I don't know, like we had practiced and talked and watched videos and prepared. And she delivered our baby. It's funny, her sister was in there cooking bacon. And she was a vegetarian at the time, so I kind of felt bad making her cook bacon. But she's eating the little bits and stuff all through the eating eggs and bacon, and she had the baby right there. I think around 6:45ish.
It was the third contraction.
Yeah.
After she told you to get me in the car, I only had 3 contractions.
Yeah, 3 contractions later.
I didn't have time to make it to the.
I'm glad we were not in the car. I'm glad we were not in the car. She had the baby there on our bed. It was amazing. It was just amazing. And our baby did not pass away because of us having a baby at home. Our baby had a lot of problems.
We knew in advance.
We knew in advance.
But we didn't plan to have her at home.
Yeah.
We were planning on my midwife getting to our house and just going with us and acting
hospital
as a doula for us. And I just, like he said, I thought we had 18 or 24 hours. I wanted to just be at home as long as I could. And we just waited too long.
If you're not planning on having it at home, don't do that.
Yeah,
don't wait too long. So the ambulance came, and I think that lady that was on the ambulance that day, was it her first day on the bus, or was it
her first day at a birth?
It was her first time at a birth, and she really helped our family, or helped Chloe, and Michelle was helping our midwife and getting things going, and they got us to the hospital, and it was crazy. We walked into that emergency room, or she rolled in, I walked in, and it was like everybody was standing at attention, like the whole emergency room. They had already transported all of these pieces of equipment to the emergency room so they could do these tests on the baby. And we had to talk about this, and we talked this through with our doctors at Emory. And I want to talk about these hard topics because maybe you're going through this decision, or maybe you may face a decision like this in the future. But we decided, because by the time she was born, it was a less than 10% of survival with like 6 surgeries. Is that right? Like boom, 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 boom.
The one surgery, there was one, she was going to have to be life flighted from Chattanooga
immediately
to Atlanta. And I think they said the survival rate was less than 5%.
Yeah.
It might have even been less than 1%. It was some crazy, crazy number.
And our fear was, what if we only get this little bit of time with our daughter, and we've thrown her in a helicopter that neither one of us can go with her, and she dies, and we don't get to ever see her spend, and it was less than 5% of that first surgery, and then after that it was like a less than 10% chance of survival if everything was right, and from the scans. And so she was born, and they took her for like an hour. And y'all, our little baby girl, it was far worse than anything we had seen in the scans. Obviously, the whole kidney thing, the heart issue, probable Dandy Walker. She had her rectum did not form, and I'm not being vulgar, but
it didn't match up.
It didn't match up, so that's a whole nother surgery. There was so many complications that our little baby girl had, and so we asked them if it was that, if everything was right, that we would not do intervention to try to prolong her life, other than just make her comfortable, and it was far worse. And so they immediately brought the baby back to us.
They said we made the right choice.
They said everybody said we made the right choice. And that gave us peace, because we had made that choice without all the knowledge of that day. And so then we went to, they moved us to the NICU. The NICU is the only place at that time in that hospital where you could get hot air, was it cannula, the nasal cannula air was heated.
I don't remember this part.
There's a reason they had to put us there, but there was this comfortable room on the back side of the NICU, and it was wild. Our family and friends, obviously, they were starting to, everybody, the closest relatives we had was 2 hours away, the closest relatives. So I'll never forget, and I was talking about this week, our friends, Brother Will and Miss Amanda Allen, he was at Rome, he was teaching in Rome, Georgia at the time, and he is not my brother. He's one of my best friends, but he went into his boss that day and he said, my brother's baby is born and is probably going to die, and I'm leaving. And I think they were the first ones to us that day, and they sat with us, and people were able to get there. Your sister, I believe, your parents, my grandparents. They
didn't make it in time.
They didn't make it in time, and I think she lived 8 hours. 8 hours. And we got to spend every second of it with her, except for that little bit of time that they did those tests on her. And during that time, we had a nurse, and they don't prepare you for the NICU. They don't give you prep talks. There was a nurse that was assigned to us when we first got there, and they were trying to get that room set up, and we were in the middle of a unit, like a wing, like all these babies around us, and we're in the middle of a wing. And I know she's like coming down off the high of childbirth, and so I'm paying attention to all this. And the only time our baby ever made a sound was when we were in that wing. And we got a picture of it. She's got a little mouth open. She's laying on Chloe, and we were all three there together. And it was the only time, I guess it's the only time up until Emmeline cried. I mean, it was special. It was just a little bitty of audible cry, just a little bitty. It's tiny, but it was precious to us. And this nurse, I'm trying not to say her name. I did not know this. She had been having a hard day. She'd been having a hard time, from what I understand, in the NICU, and she got assigned to us. Poor her. And I asked her to stay with us, and I didn't know the protocol, but she literally stayed with us through her shift change. She just sat with us that day when we got put in that back room, and eventually Everly's rates just kept going down, and they asked all the family to leave. Everybody, our pastor, his wife, my siblings, her siblings, everybody everybody that was there got to come in and meet Everly, and but we knew her vitals are going down, so we asked, just for the sake, that beep, that beep, like maybe you see it on TV, or maybe you've been in this situation like this. We just could you just unhook it, just unhook it all, and just keep the air. And so we're sitting there during this time, and everybody else is gone, and we're singing Amazing Grace. We're quoting scripture. We sang How Firm a Foundation. I was quoting the Bible, and I've said this before. You may not always have a Bible, but the Bible can always have you if you hide it in your heart. And that day, it was with us. And God's grace just carried us through every bit of this. And it was hard, y'all. I'm not sitting here acting like that we didn't feel emotion or that we didn't face hardship. But it was like the grace of God was just, that last, 15 minutes I think we talked about. It was just like the power and grace of God flooded that room. And Kelly was sitting there and she was crying. And Chloe was holding Everly. And I looked up at Kelly and I said, Kelly, I don't know why God is allowing us to be here today. I don't understand all of this. I said, but I know this. I said, I would hate to waste this selfishly. And I looked at Kelly that day and I said, Kelly, have you ever been saved? And she said she had not. And right there on our little baby's deathbed, we got to sit there and share the gospel with Kelly. And I don't know if she's ever got saved. I said her name. Here we go. But you don't know her last name. And if she's watching, I hope she sees this. I don't know if she's gotten saved yet, but I know that we were able, because of our little girl's life, we were able to get the gospel to her. And she passed away that day after 8 hours of life. We got to sit there and hold her as she took her last breath. She didn't hurt. It was very peaceful. She just left. And they let us keep Everly with us. So they put us in a big room in the mother-baby wing at the hospital. And that is the room that the other children ended up being born in.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly.
I think so.
That is the room that 2 of our other children were born in. Not everybody understood it. Like, there were some people that were kind of critical that came in, and they're like, why do they still have the baby with them? But it was precious to us. Mm-hmm. We got to sit there with our family and hold her and love on her. And I know it's just her body, but it was precious to us. And so that whole night, and maybe you've never went through anything like this, and you may go through it one day. We've got friends that went through some similar things that got horror stories, and we don't have that. We had a precious time where our family, everybody got to come in and see the baby and love on us, and it was different. But it's hard to explain this. It was precious. That funeral that we had been living for 3.5 months was over. And we had some closure, and so we wanted to make the most out of our baby's life. And so what we did is, at that time, we had a fund called Crowns for Everly on our website. It's not there anymore, but at that time we had this. And instead of people sending a bunch of flowers and stuff, people all over the world started sending money to this fund so we could raise money for Hebrew Spanish Bibles. I think I've got one on my shelf right there, but these, let me just get it. These are, yes, these Bibles. These are Spanish Hebrew Bibles, and we were able to print these in our baby's memory. Do you remember how much? $12,000, I think.
I do not remember.
She don't remember. She doesn't remember numbers, but it was something like $12,000. So over each Bible is $10, and so we were able to get a lot of Bibles in our baby's name, and so there's Spanish-speaking Jews all over the world, and they're going to get the Word of God. And I can't help but think, and I even said it then, that for long after we're gone, probably, if Jesus doesn't come back before then, there's going to be people that get those Bibles, and they're going to, I don't know how it all works in heaven, but I let me pretend if you don't believe it this way, but there's going to be crowns that our little girl gets, and she only lived 8 hours here. And so that's what we did. And it just started rolling in the next Monday. So I remember this. I don't know if you ever think about this, but that Sunday night at church, do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Going the way our home church, which I'm pastoring now, but when we were at Bible Baptist there in Rossville, you walk into the side of the auditorium, so there's some pews this way, and then the rest of the sanctuary is that way. And we sat on that front pew right there that night, and all the ladies in the church, I got a picture of that too. All the ladies in the church came and gathered around us that night and prayed over us. And that's what you can do. That's what you can do. You can pray for people. And it was just amazing. I don't know if you ever think about that.
I do.
It was a precious time. We that Monday we had the funeral at our church, and people from all over came, and we were able to put her viewing in the fellowship hall, and people were walking by. I guess I don't know how many hours, and people from all over, people that we had not seen in a long time. And I'm just trying to tell you what all God did. People coming by, coming through, and you know, for her, I was just trying to protect her. She was just there, and she was enjoying these moments with the baby. But so many dear friends came by, and I'm thankful. I believe we've got the best friends in the whole world, best church, just best pastor. I'm just thankful for them. And so much happened that day. I remember, if you come out of that fellowship hall, they were taking the baby out to go to the sanctuary, and we were following the baby, and we come down the ramp, and up the stairs came two of our heroes, and they're both in heaven now. But Brother Sammy had called Brother Sammy Allen, called Brother Stennett Ballou that morning and asked him if he was coming up to the funeral. Brother Ballou's daughter, Rachel, she was, at the time, we thought she might be on her deathbed, and he left her deathbed and picked up Brother Sammy. We didn't know it. We didn't know it at that point, but Brother Sammy had had a heart attack that morning. He had pain all morning, and he still came. And those old two soldiers, I remember me and you were walking down the ramp, and here comes Brother Sammy and Brother Stennett up. And I say it again, we got the best friends in the world. And we went in that day, and she's, you know, a mother's emotions are so much different than a man's. You know, a lot of times I think men are not on purpose. And I want you to hear this, ladies, just because, and maybe Miss Chloe can speak to that some too, but just because your husband does not respond the way you do at the time, that does not mean that he doesn't love you. That doesn't mean he doesn't care. But that connection, you know, the hormones, the physical connection, you carry that baby in your womb. We don't have that. And don't take out, am I saying this right? Don't take out your emotions, or don't take out your anger on your husband just because he doesn't feel it the way you do. You want to say anything about it?
I think you said it.
It's different. It's different for us. But man, that day, Brother Mark Stroud prayed over the whole service, and our preacher preached on the God of all grace out of 1 Peter 5, and Brother Sammy said a word, and all of our lost family were very uncomfortable. It was great. But I want them to be uncomfortable. I want people to feel welcomed at church, but when the gospel's being preached, I don't want people to feel comfortable. But God put it on my heart to preach that day. And, you know, my pastor and others, they said, you don't have to preach. I felt like I needed to preach. So our little baby's little casket's sitting there on the communion table, and I got up and preached out of 2 Samuel, I think it's 14, where he said, after David's baby died, he said, he can't come to me, but I can go to him. And I preached on I'm going, how about you? And talked about innocence, talked about children that die in Christ, and talked about the gospel. And that day, a dear lady walked down the aisle, knelt beside our baby's casket, and got saved. At the same time, there had been a 7-year estrangement where my mama's family and our family there was a schism there. And I had been praying. I mean, Chloe knew this for years. I had been praying, and I had no idea my grandmother was there. And that day, my grandmother walked down the side of the church and got on her knees in front of my parents, and they all got right. And you just don't know. You have no idea what God's going to do.